Hey guys, Kanki here from Kankis Typology, and today we're going to talk about what is a personality type. So, if someone's like starting off with typology or MBTI or something similar, well, a first natural question people usually end up having is what even is the personality type? Or from a more interest-based perspective, what can you get out of learning typology and learning people's types? So, so one thing you can know is basically a person's nature. A personality type is basically your nature that you basically end up having after a certain age. Let's say after adolescence, you're basically the same type. And unless maybe you get like serious head trauma, you usually end up being that same type for the rest of your life. And if you know someone's type, you basically know so much about them. You know, okay, where do their insecurities lie, right? Or what are they strong in? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What is the most optimal life path they can take? Or if you're looking at your personality type, the optimal path that you could take. Sorry for this camera. I have this habit where I move my right hand and it makes the camera blur, which is very unfortunate. But this thing of if you know your type, you just know so much about yourself. You can actually live your life in a way that best suits you. For example, I know that I have this function called, well, I'm not gonna say the name, it's too early for that. For such things. It's very early for such things. But for example, I have this thing where I just have amazing willpower. Like I can basically willpower my way through doing anything. And as long as I practice, I can basically become very good at certain things, like psychology. Actually, personality types are basically very, very accessible to my personality type, the INFJ. I know that if I keep putting in the effort into the science, I'm eventually gonna become one of the top psychologists or typologists in the world. That's basically how a mind works, and a mind works in a way that makes it optimal for me to do such a thing. Now, I'm not saying INFJs can only do that. There's many things they could do, like computer programming is one of them. INFJs can be amazing computer programists. I know plenty of them that are. And you can apply this concept to many other types. Let's say if you're an STJ type, if you're an ESTJ or ISTJ, then being in law or being a doctor are very common career paths for those types. So there are just so many caveats and so many things that you can actually get out of learning your own or someone else's type. So continuing with your own type, another thing you can know is again your optimal life path, the direction you can take in life by fully understanding yourself and what your mind is capable of doing and what it's going to have difficulties doing. For me, for example, the school is basically impossible. I literally had to design my own system of studying because otherwise I can't pass university, right? Because university is basically not made for my type. Because my type is very rare, right? So society is not based around my type. Society is more so based around the common types, right? The common types. So yeah, like if you actually want to have a deep understanding of yourself and the ability to fully accept yourself, learning typology will really help with that. What about other people? Well, I've had many experiences where by knowing someone's type, I was able to fix many broken relationships. For example, with specific personality types, there are types where I just genuinely have a hard time getting along with them because the way my mind works isn't fully compatible with how their mind works. And sorry, I have a stuffy nose. I'm really sick, but I still managed to pass my university exam based on the system I made from fully understanding myself. And I'm sitting here and I'm doing a kick-ass lecture, so Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. But anyway, it also comes down to like, okay, like what can you actually learn about other people? It's like one time I had a really hard time getting along with this person that I had to live with, and it was my fault. The reason it was my fault is because I actually had access to the science and I chose to not use the knowledge. Not everyone has the luxury of knowing the science, and I chose to like be lazy and not use the knowledge. And it beat me, it destroyed the relationship. Then I did use the science. I'm like, okay, this person is insecure about this thing. Their number one need is this. They genuinely need this thing. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna provide those things to help fix the relationship. And I did. Because guess what? Same as me, they have a strong need to be listened to. And I have a hard time doing that and providing and meeting that need for other people. But I realized that if I want to get along with this person, I have to do that. I have the knowledge. Like, knowledge is power. Like, knowledge is half the battle. So I knew that, like, okay, I have to listen to this person. I started listening to them every time they spoke, and overall, my relationship got way better because of it. There are other people that have other needs. For example, there are certain people who just genuinely want to feel better than you do, right? So, like, sometimes I've had to sacrifice how I feel based on making them feel good, which for me isn't really hard because I'm naturally compatible with such people most of the time. But if you're not compatible with them, actually being able to put to words or hear me put to words the conflict will actually help you solve the problem. Another thing that learning typology will help with is again this better understanding. If you have understanding and better knowledge, you will be able to make better choices with other people. You will actually be able to know like the detailed explanation behind why you are not able to get along with certain people. For example, by the way, I'm trying to not take breaks. I'm putting a lot of effort to maintain my focus here. I'm not sure you guys can tell, but I'll keep willpowering through it, I suppose. But my attention is starting to wane, unfortunately. So, did you know, like, what is the number one way of getting someone to like you? It's, or getting someone to hate you. It literally comes down to a specific function in the brain that is different for each person. And whether or not you target that positively or negatively can literally impact the entire relationship. For example, we have we have certain types like ESFJs and ENFJs that the number one need is to be listened to. If you listen to them and sometimes take action on what they say, they're gonna feel very appreciated and valued. However, if you call them stupid, they will just hate you. And the ESFJ in particular is going to start spreading misinformation about you. So you might want to avoid that. This can also apply to other types and their other functions. For me, for example, I have a function that makes me just afraid that I give people a bad experience. I'm afraid that, which is something that I mostly overcome in my life. So it's not entirely like genuine if I speak from my own experience based on that. Although, let me give you an example. So I'm genuinely afraid that I will give people a bad experience. And sorry about my brother and sister being loud in the background. So for me, it's like even if I go outside, I'm more or less aware of what people are doing around me, and I'm just genuinely worried that I'm gonna do something to give them a bad experience, to make them have a bad reaction. And it's usually most people don't even care though, right? That's the thing. Most people don't actually care, but I care, right? I care. Like, even though I know that I probably don't care that much about some random stranger, anytime I have an interaction with someone in real life, I just have this. I'm just like, okay, whether I consciously realize this or not, I basically give them a good experience, or like really try to avoid giving them a bad one. And this is something that I'm really overcoming in my life for knowing this knowledge, but that is a thing. I mean, so like for me, I remember one time, so SC inferior types, so INFJs and INTJs, can have this thing where they're really afraid. Like I said, that we're afraid of like looking bad. We're afraid of smelling bad, looking bad, just making someone just have a bad reaction, a bad visual, sensual, aromatic experience. And like one time, there was this one person in my school that kept making fun of my appearance. And oh boy, the bad the way I hated that man. Like I've never hated anyone before, like that much. And I was planning his demise because hey, he attacked my inferior function, and that's what happens. Because again, he was ignorant, he did not know the science, and that has consequences. And similar consequences are things that. By the way, just if you're wondering, he's actually one of my best friends nowadays. Because again, I learned the science. I've learned to actually understand people and understand myself. So if someone's like, "Hey, you look so bad and you give me a bad experience, you make me uncomfortable," I'm like, "Okay, whatever. I don't care." Like I'm aware I have the weak spot, so I don't let it affect me. Unless the best thing for me to do is for me to consider that. But yeah, it's like I've had to deal with similar things in my past. There were times where I've negatively affected people's insecurities, and it really cost me. One time I had this one person consistently going around just completely bad mouthing me with everyone, completely destroying my reputation, which I wasn't even aware of because that's my blind spot. Not that I care that much, but it was a thing, and then it stopped me from having certain opportunities, which was pretty unfortunate. I've had people who, because I gave them a positive impact on their insecurity, what they did is like basically I was doing psychology lectures in force size dynamics in Georgian, my native language, and because I positively reaffirmed this person's insecurity very consistently, they basically were like, okay, I really like this person, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna like promote their channel in like news articles and like publications just to like help them succeed. I'm like, she didn't have to do that, but thank you. I mean, I appreciate it. That was very nice of them. They never told me they did it, but I know who it was. I won't say their name though. But all of this really just comes down to not just insecurities, but like overall, like there are just many things that can really positively influence your life if you know this knowledge. For example, yeah, it's like okay, let's actually get to the point though. I have this bad habit of not getting to the point, which hopefully isn't too unacceptable. So, what is a type? Like a type is basically how a person interprets the world around them, how they make decisions based on the information. Um, Again, what are the strengths, weaknesses, insecurities? Like I can basically predict how each and every person is going to react in a situation purely based on their type. Like I know, okay, this person, they're an SJ type, they're very safety orientated. They're gonna just do what is right and true. Now this person, they're an SP. Like bro, I don't want to mess with SPs. It's maybe not the best thing I could do. And well, at least if I directly challenge them one on one, then I'll be at a disadvantage. Otherwise, if I stab them in the back, then they're never gonna see it coming. Because again, they have that blind spot. Especially those ISFPs and ISTPs. They're just unaware of consequences and people's intentions. Which again, if you are an ISFP or ISTP, learning that you have that weakness will help you do things to not mess up your life because of it. I mean, I've literally heard from my mentor, C.S. Joseph, tell stories where this one ISTP person was literally completely and utterly taken advantage of by this ENFP. That basically just got them for everything they had. Because the ISTP was just believing what the ENFP was saying and they were not aware of the ENFP's intentions. Because guess what? It's like people have different intentions. Like NPs, NTPs, ENTPs, INTPs, ENFPs, and INFPs have this perspective of it's the intentions that matter. Whereas from the SP perspective, right, the ESTP, ESFP, ISFP, and ISTP perspective, actually, they're like, oh no, actions are the same as intentions, right? So like literally, like I can give you like many examples of how just simply based on your type, like the entire way of how you approach life is completely different. So are you like an SJ type that cares about doing things in a traditional way, in a safety orientated way, in a way of doing things in a tried and true way? Are you an SP where you're just doing whatever makes sense in the moment and you're all about the shared experiences? And especially if you're like a ISFP or especially ISTP, you love taking risks, right? Yeah, especially ISFPs and ISTPs. Verify that in my head real quick. Yeah, so there's just many things that you can just know by knowing someone's type. So yeah, that was basically it. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.